Hello everyone, and welcome to This Nintendo Life episode 41. My name is NBZ, and I am a little out of breath, but not as out of breath as my co-host on this podcast. Of course, it's Bally, who's just returned from finishing his second marathon. How are you doing, Bally?
My legs are in a lot of pain, NBZ. 3 hours 22, so very happy with the time. Cut 5 minutes off my personal best, but my legs took a beating as a result. I can't do stairs today, just can't do stairs.
Yeah, well, you should just sit down, play some video games, and have a good time, honestly.
That sounds like an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good stuff has happened past couple of weeks. There's been a new video game from Nintendo that has been released, and we're going to be talking about that later. But before we jump into the show, head first, let's go to Bally and see what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the show.
We've got what we've been playing, we've got some of your emails, and then for our third segment this week, we are going to hop back in time 10 years and have a chat about what Nintendo did at E3 2005.
Yeah, it was a long time ago now, and we were kind of reminiscing about what we were doing back then. And Bally and I actually watched the conference and did a live commentary of it, which you can find over on my YouTube channel. And a link to that will be on our Twitter page, of course, at TNL Podcast, so you'll be able to find that there. It's going to be a fun discussion, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Before we do that, let's get into our standard procedure here. What stuff have you been playing in the past couple of weeks, amongst the training for your marathon, of course?
Oh, yes. I completed the game in about 7 to 8 hours in the space of 2 playing sessions, which was quite unhealthy at the time. But that game...
Wait! I didn't realize you did it in 2 play sessions. Wow.
So I played it for 2.5 hours, I think, and then the next time I played it, I completed it in a single
Jesus, you're
sitting.
crazy.
Yeah. So that game is Steamworld Dig on the Wii U. I bought this game a while ago in a sale for about £3.50 or £3. I remember you telling me, Nbz, you're like, you have to pick up this game, Bally, it's a great game. I'm like, yep. Well, it's not that expensive, might as well try it. So added that to the backlog, and I've been working away at the backlog quite religiously, and eventually got to it. And I'm pretty pleased with this game. It really surprised me. It has a lot of mechanics that I've not really experienced too much before in video games, and I know you kind of disagree with this comparison, but I think it's got a lot of elements that are like Harvest Moon mixed with Metroidvania, and the Harvest Moon loop that I'm about to describe, I'd also compare that to a game like Pikmin. So what I mean is that in Steamworld Dig, the aim of the game is to bury down into the mines and get gems, basically. That's the main money mechanic of the game. You bring up these gems to the surface and make money from them. With that money, you buy upgrades, new weapons, blah, blah, blah. So that mechanic of going down into the mine on like a run, basically, and getting as far as you can before sort of your lantern oil runs out, or you run out of water, or you might be too low on health, and there's a big penalty for dying in this game. But so before any of those 3 things run out, it's important to get back to the surface and make your money. And I feel that loop is incredibly similar to a game like Harvest Moon or Pikmin, where both those games have like a day-night cycle. And you'll sort of wake up in Harvest Moon or go out on a quest on a day in Pikmin, and you'll know that you can achieve some stuff, but you know you can't achieve everything. And I feel that is so similar to this game, where you just have to kind of at times call it a day and think, right, it's a bit risky if I just keep drilling downwards here because I'm gonna die or I'm gonna run out of oil. And you think, right, I'm just gonna get back to the surface. And I feel like that the ability to accept that you just can't do everything in one day, I feel is so similar to a game like Harvest Moon or Pikmin. And then obviously the Metroidvania comparison is pretty obvious to see because there's a lot of platforming. You're in a massive 2-dimensional world. It's interesting because you're creating a lot of the 2-dimensional world in the sense that all the sort of channels that you're drilling down and creating remain for the entirety of that game save file. So you're really creating the world around you, and that's a really nice mechanic. So I definitely compare it to those games.
It's almost like Metroid Maker, you know,
Yeah.
like the traditional square block map that you have in those games is being driven through by yourself. Like you're making the corridors and the loops, but it is different in the sense that it's not horizontal; it's a vertical game. You know, you're
Yes.
going down, down, and finding rooms and caves and entrances. You're not going from left to right that much, and so that kind of exploration aspect is a little different. I feel it's more linear because you have this set direction of just going consistently downwards, but there are kind of like little areas off to the left and right that you can expand into. And of course, obviously the upgrades are what makes it, you know, draw that Metroidvania
Yeah.
comparison. What do you think of some of the upgrades you got? Because a lot of them are based around drilling. It's not a very combat focused game.
No.
So
And I really like that about the game. Like, there's not a whole lot of enemies. There's only one boss fight. Spoilers. Sorry if that was a spoiler, but there's not a whole lot of focus on the enemies. And like, yeah, the weapon upgrades, I feel like you suggested, make it more and more like Metroidvania. So I think one of the first weapons you get is like an extra jump. No, the extra jump is really late on actually. But you sort of gain like a steam jump. You get the ability to run fast, which is straight out of Super Metroid, and they even have you running across sort of blocks that disintegrate behind you, exactly like Super Metroid. Um,
yeah, yeah.
so just those things, like when you run and jump, you can jump way further, and obviously you hardly ever have the space to do massive running jumps. But by the end of the game, you can really traverse the world uh, really easily. And compare that to the very start of the game, where you're literally spending all your time just hacking away at rock, and there's hardly any platforming really. By the end of the game, you can platform your way up and down uh, the entire mine of the whole game in the space of a few minutes, and it really becomes much easier. And that's a really nice progression loop that they have. This idea of, because you've got the combination of upgrading your weapons through money, which help make them more efficient, like your drill or your pickaxe, and your health, your amount of water you have. So that's all done through the money and the gems you're collecting. But then you also have the very Metroidvania style upgrades, where you just have to access a particular area, and you will get like a super jump or the super speed. So it's really marrying those two ideas, like I was describing, between Harvest Moon and Metroidvania, where you have two arts trees, or not arts trees. That's very Xenoblade.
Skill branches, I guess.
Yeah, like just you've got two branches that kind of work off each other. One of them you don't require any money, and it's very Metroidvania, and then the other one is entirely money related and is very similar to something like upgrading your axe or your pickaxe or your hoe in Harvest Moon. That's the comparison I wanted to make. But I would really recommend this game. I can't remember the company who does it. Do you?
They're called Image and Form. I'm not sure if you listened yet to the interviews I talked about before, but Don Koopman from Nintendo World Report conducted a couple of interviews with a guy by the name of Brian, who I believe is the head of the company. And those are really fantastic interviews. They really give you insight into like what the team was doing and what they did in their past, and kind of their goals and expectations from this project. And I think that's a good place to go if you want more information on this game. And the company's actually working on a follow-up to this, which isn't Steamworld Dig 2. It's actually called Steamworld Heist, and it's a 2D like strategy game, where you're kind of like aiming on. It's basically all set in space, and you have like robots and pirate vessels and like taking ships. It's very different, but it looks really cool, and I'm kind of excited about that to see where they go, because I feel like sometimes companies, when they rely on sequels too much, they can get stale, but these guys really seem to be pushing themselves and to do something completely different, but to keep it within the same universe. And it's something very Nintendo about that, you know, the fact that they lean on the same characters and kind of art style and everything, but change the mechanics and do something completely different, like genre related. So yeah, seems like a cool thing that's going to happen.
But yeah, I super enjoyed Steamworld Dig. I would highly recommend it. And yeah, it's a nice little short game on both of the eShops for Wii U or 3DS.
Yeah, I made my top 10 last year for the games that I'd played that didn't actually come out then. Yeah, I'd absolutely say it was great. What did you think how it held up visually on Wii U? Because I played it on 3DS and I got a little bit of the 3D effect there. It's not really useful at all. It's nice to look at, but did you think the art style held up well on the Wii
Yeah,
U
the
HD?
the art style's nice. I liked it a lot, and one thing I would say about the Wii U is that the gamepad works really well because I sort of imagined that I'd be able to swap between the gamepad and the TV screen quite seamlessly, and there wouldn't be a big difference between the two. And while you can play it entirely on the gamepad, I feel it's much better to play it on the TV screen because you have your map on the gamepad. So while you're playing on the gamepad, they sort of minimize your map into the bottom left of the screen, and it's just taking up a lot of space that doesn't need to be taken up because you can play it on your TV. So I'd highly recommend playing it on the TV because it just spreads everything out. It's a bit like me with Xenoblade on the 3DS. Like they take a lot of the information that would have been on the top screen and just sort of move it to the bottom screen to give you a bit more space. I quite like it when both Wii U and DS or 3DS games do that. It just clears it all up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree with that. So cool. Steamworld Dig is great, so go and play it. What else have you been playing, Bally?
So I picked up the day after launch day because there was a problem with Amazon, but I eventually got Splatoon.
Yay!
Now, I can't remember the last big AAA Nintendo game that we both played. Probably like Smash Brothers, I'd say. I can't really remember.
I think it was, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
neither of us picked up Kirby for various reasons, and Codename Steam is another one that we were kind of holding off on. So really, Splatoon is the big one.
And I definitely want to pick up both those games at some point, preferably this year. But yeah, Splatoon is. I'm only maybe 3 or 4 hours into it, and I have to say that I've spent all of that time just playing online. And even on top of that, I've not even gone to the shop and upgraded my weapons at all. So I'm still on the Splattershot Junior with the Bubble Special that I haven't changed since playing it. But I'm really happy with that. I just wanted to, and I think I'm up to about level 6 or 7, and I'm just have really enjoyed so far the online and played quite a bit with you, NBZ, and it's really seamless. It's just like the global test fire, but I feel like I am getting better at the game, and it's really rewarding as a result. Just the mechanic and the idea of going into your own ink, charging up, sneaking up on people, lobbing a little timed bomb every now and then. Like it's just feels really unique and feels very different to a traditional shooter.
I think the one part of Splatoon that has stood out to me the whole time is how fucking solid the mechanics are. It is a dream to control, an absolute dream, and I think we talk about this a lot with Nintendo games in that they focus so much on the control aspect, and it's really important to me that a game has tight, responsive controls, especially as someone who loves games like Super Meat Boy and those kind of masochistic platformers. If you don't have good kind of air mechanics and jump mechanics that I feel like I have absolute and total ownership over, then I'm not super interested. And Splatoon absolutely nails that aspect. The game feel is so good that just using the two shoulder buttons to like seamlessly stream between shooting and sliding into the ink, it's an amazing feeling, and it's one of those things that despite the fact that yes, on launch they don't have that many maps, and yes, the single player content is a little light, there's a lot of things that could be added to Splatoon. The simple act of playing that game is so much fun that I'm not sure it even has entered my mind at this moment in time. Like it's just so absorbing. So I've had such a great time.
One area that we really do disagree on are the motion controls. So just very briefly, I love the motion controls. I use them all the time. I feel that you can aim faster. It just works better. And like the idea of using motion controls doesn't rule out the ability to use the second analog stick to aim. It just sort of it feels like it's enhanced, and I just feel quicker. Is the ability to aim and shoot at someone is much quicker. But you prefer NBZ the without the motion controls at all. So you're just purely controlling it with the analog sticks. Why this decision?
Well, okay, so I've talked in the past how I like Nintendo's motion controls when it comes to fine aiming a lot of the time, but when I've used those, it's generally in single player focused games. So things like Wind Waker HD and Ocarina of Time 3D, where you're able to control the bow and arrow and the grapple hook and those kind of things by pointing and aiming with the motion. I think that works excellently in those scenarios because you're not really under that much pressure. Of course, the enemies are coming at you, but it's very different when you have a human player versus an AI opponent, right? The human is much quicker and has way faster reflexes and is able to react to situations more efficiently than an AI is ever able to. So, because of that, I like it in the Zelda games because I can just aim at a thing and get where my shot needs to be without having to wobble about with the analog stick and try and fine aim it. In Splatoon, I feel like it gets a bit too frantic, It's a very fast-paced game, and I didn't really expect it to be that quick. And the problem with motion controls is if I'm trying to get a shot off on someone in particular, and this is mainly focused on shooting enemy players as opposed to spreading ink, because when it comes to spreading ink, yeah, the motion controls are fine. It's not a huge deal because you can just waggle them around and get a good spread going. But when it comes to being steady and focused on a single enemy, I can't do it. It just something about not hitting it right on target wasn't sticking with me, and I think I'm much better when it comes to a second analog stick, just because over the last few years I've played a lot of PS3 games and stuff on Steam with my 360 controller. As a Nintendo fan, Bally, you haven't, so you don't have as much familiarity using a second analog stick for anything other than a camera, right?
Yeah.
So for you, I feel like the motion controls work perfectly, and certainly if this had been me from 4 years ago, I would be 100% in on the motion controls and wouldn't have looked back. But because I have that familiarity and that ability to use the second analog stick proficiently enough, I'm going with that, and it works way better for me. And so what I like to do is I like to kind of stay hidden in the ink and move my analog stick through the air basically while I'm hidden, so I can basically focus on someone and then pop out and hit them instantly without having to wobble or anything and just have it stay there.
And the reticle the reticle doesn't vanish while you're hidden in ink. It's still there, so you can, like you said, you can actually aim at someone and then immediately start shooting.
Yeah, which is fantastic. It allows for sneak attacks and surprises, and I'm kind of trying to get a piece of gear that has an ability which lets you not be seen in ink, because that is something that I think is kind of valuable. A lot of the time,
because at the moment you can be seen if you're moving in ink, but not if you're stationary in ink, right?
Right, absolutely. So that's what I want to do. I want to try and get that ability, and I think Alex Navarro on the Giant Bomb Quick Look said that was one that he was using.
I was going to mention him because in terms of the analog stick, because he was someone who, like yourself, is obviously very used to using two analog sticks, and he was completely prepared to only play with analog sticks, and he was like, I'm not going to try the motion control. It's just not going to be as good. And then he actually sort of turned to the dark side and it was like, actually the motion control works really well and I'm going to stick with that. And it was just interesting that he made that jump. And I'm going to make a prediction that you will not like NBZ, but I predict that you will eventually turn to the dark side and go with the motion control.
I don't know. I don't think I will, honestly.
I don't know. Mark my words. I'm putting my line in the sand.
I used the motion controls during the global test fire, and I was frustrated a lot of the time because I couldn't find the option to try the analog stick.
Maybe now would be a good time where we tell the Twilight Princess story with the bow and arrow.
Well, you can go ahead and tell that. I'm not even getting involved in this shit.
So, me, NBZ, and our friend Ali T, we were all playing Twilight Princess together. I think NBZ and Ali T were both swapping between controlling the game. And we were at this point in Kakariko Village, where there's sort of like a mini game that I think unlocks a heart piece. And the idea is that you have to aim at a target which is absolutely like miles away, and I think it unlocks like the Hawkeye, doesn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. It's the kind of the sniper aim for Twilight Princess, as it were.
Yeah. So in order to unlock the Hawkeye, you have to not use the Hawkeye, but shoot a target that's miles off in the distance. And MBZ was on the controls, and no matter how many times he tried to shoot this target, it was just missing. And like me and Ali T were like, there must be a reason why he keeps missing. And we were carefully watching the reticle, and ever so slightly after you were like just before you would press the button to shoot, you would just tilt the Wiimote up ever so slightly, and you'd constantly miss by just a fraction because you constantly just lifted your hand a little bit. So the point of the story is I don't think you're perhaps the most sort of equipped to use very precise motion controls.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like I might have got better since
I
then,
know this
but,
was like when it came out, wasn't it? So a while ago, but
yeah.
But anyway,
I think even during my LP I struggled to do that shit, so I don't know anymore.
I'm gonna stick by
it's
my
a pain in the ass.
prediction, but we'll see.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, you haven't really done much in the customization of Splatoon.
No.
I have. I've been buying stuff. I've been buying new weapons and new clothes, and I'm not sure how you're going to take to that, Bally, as someone who like loves the fucking vanilla experience like nothing else.
And that's why I've stuck with the vanilla experience for 4 hours. Like that's how little my sort of desire to expand and try out other things. I'm very boring like that. But I'm sure I will experiment with that. Find a new preferred mode. I've just not got around to it.
So what do you think about the maps? Because there are new maps in here now. A little bit frustrating when I recorded my video on Splatoon because the same maps were being used that were used in the global test file, and I was like, for fuck's sake, man, why can't this work out for me? And it's interesting the way that they're cycling maps, because they're basically changing the 2 maps available every 4 hours, I believe. So you're not able to, like Mario Kart, sit there and choose them. And I think it doesn't make a huge difference because at the moment there are only 5 in total, so it's not like there's a wide variety available to everyone. But I've seen a lot of people complain about that online. What are your feelings on the way they've handled kind of the map picking scenarios?
I know people like Nagi particularly. He's got a real issue the lack of maps, and he's someone who's more experienced with online shooters, isn't he?
Yeah.
So like as someone who's not experienced in online shooters at all, it does not, like, I have absolutely zero problems with the maps and the way that they rotate and everything, because I don't think the stages are overly different to each other, and I think that because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like with online shooters, the idea of maps and the map design, I feel, is almost more important in traditional online shooters, because like sniper spots and things like that are really crucial to how like a match can unfold. And I almost feel like in Splatoon, while there are still spots that you can sort of snipe from, it really doesn't benefit your team at all, because the idea of the mode that we've been playing the most of, I've forgotten the name of the mode, but you basically...
It's called Turf Wars.
Turf Wars, exactly. So obviously...
That's another thing. That's the only mode available right now.
Yeah.
I think ranked battles are going to be coming as soon as more people hit level 10, which I have already. I'm like 12 at this point, so... We're waiting for that to happen. So Bally, if I can get on your horse and get to level 10 already,
I'm gonna be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
You will
but
be.
yeah, I definitely think that it is a legitimate complaint for traditional online shooters, but I think for this style of online shooter, it really doesn't make a big difference. And I would say that the new maps are really nice because they do have like more levels, and I think it is quite cool to be sneaky with the levels, because if you're high up somewhere and you're in squid form in your own ink, you're basically invisible to the naked eye unless someone literally goes up to the point that you're at and starts spraying the ground, because no one can see you, and because you're high up in a puddle, I hope I've visualized that description well enough, but yeah, no one can see you, and I mean, it's not really beneficial for your team to just sit there in a puddle spying on people, because like I said, the idea of the game is just get your color out as fast as possible. So I do think that in the long run, the map design isn't a massive deal for a game like Splatoon, and it's just hectic spraying most of the time.
Yeah, I certainly think that there's different ways to approach the maps, and different corridors and looking at areas that you need to go to. Certainly, I think the sniper can be very useful, especially if your team has. So basically, one time on the mall map, our team basically just bombed it through the center, got all the way over to their turf, murdered all of them instantly, and proceeded to basically just lay down the smackdown with our ink on their area, and we basically covered everything, and the point we're basically like pushing them back and letting them stay in, like respawning consistently. And we had someone who was sniping from the top, and they were just sitting there and just pinging them off, and while it doesn't get that many points, what it does do is it stops the enemy from being able to get out there and start contributing. So it basically eliminates a player from the field who is able to kind of remove your ink. And so there is, there's usefulness there. I just think that you have to have a more cohesive team that knows what they're doing to be able to pull that off. And unfortunately, with the lack of voice chat or any real way to communicate, it's harder to do that, but it's still possible. So yeah, Splatoon is great, and we're both really enjoying it. I'm sure we're going to be talking about it more. We'll talk about the single player next time, because I know, Bally, you haven't had a chance to dig into that yet. So we'll get to that. But before we go, I'm going to talk about a video game that I played, and it is one that I've been wanting to play for quite a while. It came out last year. It's another one of Ubisoft's small little titles. It's called Valiant Hearts. Very beautiful art style, using the Ubisoft UbiArt engine, where they can basically draw the characters in and they will just appear on the screen magically. It's about World War One, and RFN talked about this quite recently, and how, in the US, not many people know about World War One because of the fact that they weren't heavily involved, and they don't really teach it that much at their schools. And also, me and Bally were talking about this, how the US are kind of introspective in a lot of their history teachings, where they don't really know history outside of their own country. And I think that's kind of like an isolationist thing that the US has had since, even back to World War Two or World War One even.
Yeah, it's a very broad paintbrush, but you are broadly right, yes. I'm sure we're going to get some tweets like, "Nbz, we're not that dumb."
No, I am being very kind of generalized, which is a bad thing to do. But certainly, I mean, they would bring up this topic, the fact that, they don't know that much about World War One. Whereas I think both of us know quite a good amount. We learned about it in school, and, the first year when I was in my secondary school, we basically primarily focused on that war and, the futility of it, and how it was all trench warfare. And it's one of those wars where there wasn't much movement, there wasn't much, so-called action, and a lot of the battles that happened were just slaughterfests.
Exactly.
Really.
I was going to say the fundamental idea of World War One versus World War Two was this idea that generals were sending heaps of people over the line, knowing that they were going to die. It wasn't even like they had a chance of survival. It was really kind of just brutal slaughter. Whereas with World War Two, there was a lot more strategy when it came to when to make moves, things like that. And there was a lot more respect on the soldiers. Whereas the relationship between those at the top and the bottom for World War One was just calamitous, and spawned so many sort of poems and literature from the period.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting, but it's also fascinating because there are not very many games about World War One. I think the reason for that, especially when you come to the shooter genre, is World War Two was much more action-packed and kind of filled with battles, and much more technology with tanks and everything. And World War One, as this kind of waiting game, you can't really make I feel like a compelling shooter in that sense out of it, because there is so much non-action happening. There's just a lot of kind of sitting there and being bedraggled and everything. And so the way the Valiant Hearts deals with this is it's not a shooter. It's a puzzle game, really, and it's 2D side-scrolling, and it's beautiful. It's a wonderful game, and it's really interesting to make that contrast between like the horribleness of World War One and the charm and like fantastic kind of upbeat nature in many ways of Valiant Hearts, and kind of the frivolity of it. It does kind of act kind of silly in many ways, and has these over-the-top characters, like the main evil German general that you're going up against, very cartoonish, very kind of Dick Dastardly, running away in his airship and everything. And so that lends kind of a lightheartedness to it that allows you to engage with the darkness of the material on a much deeper level. And I think that it pulls it off pretty magnificently. It's not a very difficult game. The puzzles are generally revolved around, okay, you need to get through this area because this general wants, a soup. But in order to get the soup, you're going to have to give this other general his coat, which he left over there. But the coat is behind a thing, which means you need to get a dog. So it becomes like these kind of chains of collectathons, really, of like, okay, I need to get this guy this thing so that he'll give me that thing so that I can give this guy to this thing. And you basically just go through the level, figuring stuff out, finding little collectibles as you go. And it's just a lot of fun.
Sorry, I was going to say, it almost sounds like with those puzzles, fetching the coat, fetching the soup, that they're almost indirectly suggesting that hierarchy that I was just mentioning, sort of between the generals and the soldiers.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's like quite a clever way of doing it, that, like you said, this isn't a shooter and they are going for something different. And I just think that's really refreshing and a good thing that we need more of in games, and especially games about war.
Yeah, totally. And it absolutely does that. It does the thing where you are just your average soldier. You don't have much power. You can't have much say. There's not a lot you can do. And really, like, one of the last parts of the game, you're basically rushing forward like in one of these battles, like the Somme, where there was just complete and utter slaughter, and you're going through with your platoon, and behind you is a general who is just barking at you and like shaking his fist and saying, move forward, go forward, just fly forward and into battle. And it is just like one of the darkest things, and basically you have to, in the end, you have to just take matters into your own hands and knock the general out and be like, dude, you can't fucking do this anymore. We are just dying. This is completely pointless, and we're losing lives out here. So absolutely, they don't only do it subtly; they do it absolutely directly. Throughout the course of the game.
That's great that they're kind of putting forward a political message through a video game like that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that obviously at the time you couldn't really comment on, but now a lot of people have written stuff about World War One. As you said, there are many poems about it, and there's a lot of media and film and everything, and it's a horrible war. It really was, and I think Valiant Hearts just does a great job of hitting emotional beats, but also making it lighthearted enough where it's a fun video game that you can have a good time with. And it also has like an extremely powerful ending, which I won't spoil here, but man, you should absolutely play it. It's really short. It took me about 5.5 hours to run through. And I really hope it comes to Wii U, because it's not a power thing that it can't run on the system. It's Child of Light is on Wii U, and that's another Ubisoft kind of smaller game. And I really hope they keep doing these, because as we've kind of discussed before, Ubisoft's track record of AAA stuff has been kind of dog shit as of the past.
They had a terrible 2014, yes.
One of the worst 2014s any company had was Ubisoft. But their respite was that they put out these smaller games that were fantastic, way, way better than their AAA offerings. And I hope they continue to do that, because Valiant Hearts is really wonderful. I do quickly want to touch on the fact that they do kind of have a lot of history embedded into the menus and stuff. So when you get to certain points, it'll say, yeah, pop up the menu and read about this history. I didn't like that. I thought it was a bad way of getting across the message of what happened, because it literally brings up a wall of text that you have to read, and I think they could have implemented telling you how the journey happened and like the statistics of how many people died in a more...
It becomes a bit too directly educational almost.
Yeah, it's too directly educational. It's almost like they just took a bit out of a textbook and put it in the menus and like, hey, this is a thing you should read. And I felt like it stopped the pacing of the game. Like, I felt like I was getting a good groove and like going through and figuring stuff out. If I'd been sitting there pausing every 2 seconds to read, it would have marred the experience for me. And I do know a good amount of about World War One anyway, so it's not like I needed to read that much. But they could have done a better way of integrating it into the actual gameplay, as opposed to being like, oh, you did a thing, here's a menu about what that thing happened. And yeah, I just wish that they tried to integrate that a little better. But that being said, I would 100% recommend Valiant Hearts. It's a wonderful video game, and you should all play it if you can. I think it's PS3, PS4, and 360 and Xbox One, as well as PC. I played it on PC. But hopefully one day Wii U, hopefully, and then you can play it, Bally. It's really good. The only other stuff I've been playing is, I haven't talked about this, but I played the whole of The Witcher 2 in preparation for The Witcher 3.
This is one thing I did. I played the whole of The Witcher 2.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that much about it. You can listen to me talk about it on another podcast I do called the Yo Gamecast. You can find that on iTunes, where I talk more about like non-Nintendo games I've been playing, because at the moment I have a lot of time. I'm playing lots of different video games. So if you want to hear my thoughts on The Witcher 2, you can go over there. But the reason was because I got a new graphics card in my PC, and it came with a free copy of The Witcher 3 and Batman Arkham Knight, two of the biggest AAA games coming out this year. So I was like, fuck yeah, I should probably play Witcher 2 in preparation for that, so that I know what this universe is all about. And all I say for Witcher 3 is that it has me so fucking excited for Zelda that you can't even imagine. Because this fantasy world is one of the most engaging and enthralling that I've ever been placed in. And as I have mentioned before, I'm not a big guy on doing extra stuff in video games that are open world. I've done everything in The Witcher 3 so far, and I absolutely intend on doing everything still. I've played it for about 24 hours, and I'm probably going to be playing this game for a very long time to come. I'll probably talk about it more next week, but as a primer, The Witcher 3 is a fucking incredible video game, and it's doing wonders for me. So, anyway, let's close out this segment. We'll come back after the break with some emails for you, so don't go anywhere. We shall be right back.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the show. It's that time again. It is time for your emails. Definitely my favourite part of the show. So without further ado, shall we go ahead with these, Nbz?
We should, but you should probably first tell the fine folks what the email is.
So our email address is ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. We are looking for all your E3 related emails, what your predictions are and everything like that. And we'll definitely mention that again at the end of the show. So, our first question is from Ferras. I'm Ferras. I'm from Palestine, but currently living in Dubai, for our stalker in the podcast.
Yeah, Bally wants to know where everyone lives so he can go find them one day.
Shh. Hi, Nbz and Bally. I've been listening to your podcast since episode 1, no joke. And I've been enjoying a lot of the episodes and await them all the time. P.S. Love Bally's humour. You are a joy to listen to. Before I listened to your last podcast, I just started Ori and the Blind Forest and love it to bits. An equally pretty game is Ubisoft's Childs of Light, which came out on Wii U last year. I love it, and I'm interested to know if you guys plan on playing it at some point. Keep them podcasts coming. I look forward to writing again.
All right, excellent. I also loved Ori and the Blind Forest. It is currently my front runner for Game of the Year. And yeah, look, man, we laid the gauntlet down. I'm telling you what, the game's fucking fantastic. So Child of Light is a very interesting one. I was interested in it when it was first announced, and there was many conflicting opinions going around. Some people, like Patrick Klepek and Alex Navarro, who at that time had a morning podcast that they did for Giant Bomb. They were very negative on it in terms of the writing, because the way the game is written is that it forces itself to basically have every piece of dialogue be like a rhyme. So the entire game is like rhyming couplets or just words that rhyme with each other. So they kind of like wrote themselves into a corner, and from their perspective as writers, they thought that that was kind of poorly done. Other people from IGN, I've heard, have like absolutely loved the game and think it's fantastic. So it was one of those situations where I'm interested, but I was kind of more willing to wait for a sale on it. I'm not sure what your thoughts on Child of Light are, Bally, and maybe you'll want to be interested in it at some point.
I think on a very shallow level, I think the art style and design looks fantastic for Child of Light. I think it's another one of those Ubisoft games that just looks really beautiful, and I can't. I've not really looked into and understood how the RPG elements work, and there's not like a two-dimensional RPG doesn't really appeal to me. Like a side-on 2D, I should say, sort of RPG. So it's not sort of something I'd consider playing at some point, but it's not sort of top of my list of things I'm keen to try that I've not tried yet.
Yeah, I think it's kind of unfortunate that this is the only Ubisoft kind of indie style game that's out on Wii U right now, because of course I've been playing and beaten Valiant Hearts and talked about that earlier in the show. That game is really fantastic, and I would love for it to come to Wii U, and I think it would fit perfectly on this system. And a lot of people, I think, regard that more highly than Child of Light. And similarly, there's a new game that came out this year on PC, which is called Grow Home, which is this amazing, like, fresh kind of 3D platformer. And I do want to play that later in the year, but it's probably not going to be available on a Nintendo console, which is really unfortunate. And seemingly, like, these days, the stuff that Ubisoft does with those smaller titles, with smaller studios, is way, way better received than their big budget AAA stuff. Like, you look at how poorly Assassin's Creed did last year, and Watch Dogs was this big failure, and Ubisoft are just getting raked over the coals when it comes to AAA production. But when it comes to these smaller games, like, a lot of people really like them, and they look gorgeous as well because of that art engine they have. It's called the Ubi Art Engine, which they used for Rayman Origins and Legends, and obviously Child of Light and Valiant Hearts, where basically the artists can just draw whatever they want and it appears in the game seamlessly. And that sort of ability is incredible, and it allows for such gorgeous, gorgeous games that are also kind of a much smaller scale and budget and everything, and so they can kind of push out a lot of them, and they're very interesting, and they can take risks, so
not to go away from the core conversation too much, but certainly in terms of Ubisoft AAA titles, I completely agree they really mucked it up last year, especially with Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed. But I must say, and maybe this is a completely irrational feeling, but I feel quite excited about the next Assassin's Creed, mainly because it's based in Victorian London, which I think is a really cool setting. And secondly, like, it just looks gorgeous. And I mean, obviously you can say that about Unity, but I don't know. Maybe I've got this irrational hope that that might actually be a really good entry in the Assassin's Creed franchise. And obviously, like, Black Flag was a bit out of the blue. That was a real success. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see for the end of the year. I think a lot of people have apathy towards Ubisoft right now, and they don't really care what they're doing in that space. But definitely, the small stuff is where it's at, and it's smart of them to realize it, really, because, like, with the success of the indie scene, if they just kind of go about their own business doing their own indie style games, I'm happy with that, and it means that more studios can push out more interesting and risky stuff, and yeah, it's absolutely down my alley. But Child of Light is something I would probably pick up on Steam before I picked up on Wii U, simply for the price factor. The Steam sales go ridiculously low when it comes to pricing, and Wii U hasn't quite hit that yet, although Humble Bundle thing that's happened recently, which we'll touch on in a later email, is an interesting nod towards that direction, but we'll get to that, I guess.
So our next email is from Tom. So Tom asks about our opinions on the free-to-play Pokemon games. Have we played them? Have we not? Do we plan on playing them?
So the two free-to-play games are Pokemon Shuffle and Pokemon Rumble World, I think it's called. Look, I've lost track of how many of these Rumble Bumble games there are. I don't fucking know anymore. Frankly, I don't care. But I think that should give you every indication as to my preliminary thoughts here. So I have not downloaded Pokemon Shuffle on principle, and I will never download it, and I have zero fucking interest in that product. Added to that, Nintendo tried to force it down my throat by making it appear on my 3DS home screen, to which I said fuck that and deleted the app that they basically forced me towards the eShop to download it. The business model that is used in Pokemon Shuffle, I disagree with from a moral perspective, and I think it is bullshitty, and I hate it, and I am not a fan whatsoever. So I will never play Pokemon Shuffle, and that is that for that particular game. What are your thoughts on Shuffle, Bally?
Much the same as you. We've said it numerous times on this podcast before, and we do have maybe slightly rose-tinted glasses to back on the N64 days. But games like Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Snap, those are the real style of Pokemon spin-offs that I feel work a lot better. And I mean, everyone's been demanding or wanting a Pokemon Snap game for ages, and I mean, when you compare it to like a game like Pokemon Shuffle, a lot of hard work and thought and care obviously went into Pokemon Snap, and with Pokemon Shuffle, it just feels like absolute claptrap. It's just rubbish. Like, it's just there to make money. There's no artistic drive. It's just quite two-dimensional and bad, and I feel sorry for people who are really into that sort of game, but I mean, all credit to you, just go for it if you feel like it, but it's just not, I completely agree with you, the model is just terrible, it's pretty immoral, and I hope it's a route that Nintendo just cut off right now, because it's a terrible decision.
Well,
a tragic decision.
Right, a tragic decision. So we have been looking at this quite cynically. I'd say from the other perspective, if we view it as Nintendo testing the waters in terms of every free-to-play model, because if you look at their history over the past couple of years, when it comes to free-to-play, they've done stuff like Steel Diver, where they offered a free version of the game, but you could pay for an upgraded one. They've done Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, where you basically spend and haggle with the dude to try and get the price down.
And now they've just done Stretch Mo.
Yeah, they've done Stretch Mode, which is like, here are a few free levels, then you can buy the full package.
So they do make a point of calling it free to start, which I will give them credit for. They're not trying to pretend that it's free throughout. They aren't calling it free to play. They're calling it free to start, and that is more truthful and works a bit better for the model.
Yeah, absolutely. But what if we look at it from that perspective, they're just trying to dip their toes in as many ways of doing free-to-play as possible. And you could call Pokemon Shuffle and Rumble, whatever, another kind of part of that puzzle where they are just saying, okay, there is this model where people will wait a period of time to play the video game. Let's try that and see how it works and see if it does any kind of monetary increase for us, how successful it is or whatever. And maybe they won't approach that again in the mobile market, who knows? But from my perspective, it's certainly the worst, most egregious form of free-to-play that we've seen from Nintendo so far. And the fact that it's been tied up with Pokemon is also kind of cynical in the sense that Pokemon is marketed towards children a lot of the times, and we've talked in the past about their issues with kids having access to free-to-play games and the troubles and the news stories you hear about that and how they run up bills and all that crap. And I think that in their defense, Nintendo has kind of placed a barrier to some degree on the stuff you can spend on Pokemon Shuffle, which is good that they actually limit it to some point. But overall, I'm not a fan. When it comes to the Rumble stuff, I don't even understand what's fun about those games. They literally look like the shittiest versions of like kind of 3D beat 'em ups that I've ever seen in my life. I don't understand it. Any opinions on the Rumble games, Bally?
Not really any opinions that are that different to Shuffle, to be honest. It's just not a lot of effort put into these games, and that's not what I'm a Nintendo fan for. So yeah.
I'm sure. Look, I'm sure they're very polished, right? Nintendo games are always polished, and they work well, and they control well, and everything. But when it comes to like the actual fun and the mechanics and the innovation end, like these are the two of the most kind of innovation bare games that we have seen out of Nintendo in a long time, and yeah, I really, I want to find the person who enjoys playing these Rumble games, because I fucking don't know who they are. Like, who are these people? I really feel like it's super young kids or people who are so into Pokemon that they literally don't give a shit what it is as long as it has a Pokemon name on it. They'll play it. But aside from that, I don't understand the market for it, because it literally looks like you're just running around pressing A to kill things. And that's it. Like, there doesn't seem to be any extra layers to it at all.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of blows my mind. It's unfathomable.
Well,
but,
hopefully onto a more positive note with this next email from Ryan. Hey Bally and Nbz, I've been a long time fan of Nbz's YouTube channel, but finally started listening to the podcast and caught up on all of them over the past 2 to 3 months. I'm glad I did, as I've enjoyed every single one of them. As you mentioned the Zelda Symphony and all the Street Pass tags you got, I thought I'd share my story. I was at C2E2 in Chicago last Saturday, Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo, and I got a whopping 100 Street Pass tags throughout the day. I bet I could have gotten a few more, but I didn't want to sit on my 3DS the whole time. I was able to fill out my Xenoblade and Mega Man pictures, plus a bunch of extra random tiles. Here's my question for the week. If you could have one series or franchise from another system make its way onto a Nintendo console, what would it be? Cheers, Ryan, from Chicago, Illinois.
all right. Well, I'm glad that you had that Street Pass experience. It was certainly great for Bally and I when we went to the Zelda Symphony. I feel like we could have had a bit more time to delve into Street Pass, but we were doing other things like recording podcasts and taking video.
Yeah, the podcast comes first, we've got to get our coverage together.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, it was when we could and had an opportunity, we were clearing those out. So always good to go to those events, and hope you had a good time there. Down to his question, I feel like this one is more geared towards you, Bally, because I have other means of playing video games. What franchises are the ones that you would really like to be on Nintendo so that you could play them?
I mean, there are so many different ones, to be honest. Broadly speaking, it's a lot of the games that you're very excited about, that you talk about on this show, that I can't play. Games like Ori and the Blind Forest or The Witcher 3 that's just come out. Games that are really appealing to a lot of people and just simply aren't on the Nintendo system. So definitely those two. I'd love to try out the Uncharted series. I know that you obviously love that series, and I think a lot of the games media love that series as well, so I'd definitely like to try that. Having had such a great experience with like Metroid Prime, and I know it's a very tenuous link, but I'd love to play like just a Halo game just on my Wii U. I think that would be awesome. I've never really experienced first-person shooters, and Halo is set in a very kind of alien-like setting, so I'd just really love to try and get involved in that story, get involved, perhaps try and play the online, although I hear it's obviously very janky, but I'd just love to try that because it's stepping outside my comfort zone, and definitely the majority of things that are on Wii U are quite and Nintendo systems in general are quite within my comfort zone, although I am trying to branch out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the interesting thing about Halo 4 specifically, is a lot of people who worked on that game were ex-Retro Studios people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Metroid influence in Halo 4, people seem to say. So that would probably be an interesting
And I
one.
would love for the Ubisoft Assassin's Creed games to come back to Wii U and Nintendo, because I have said it so many times on this podcast how much I enjoyed Assassin's Creed 4, and I do plan on playing 3, but I feel like after 3 I'm going to be at a bit of a dead end when it comes to my my Assassin's Creed urge.
Yeah, I mean, even those 2D ones that they announced, those aren't even coming to Wii U, which I was surprised about because they seem like the sort of thing that would work on the eShop, and it's not like they need the power of the PS4 to, run those. So I don't know. That was a curious decision, but hey, and no third parties on Nintendo anymore. So what are you gonna do? I guess for me, it's definitely harder to say. I would probably, I'd like to see Final Fantasy come back to Nintendo platforms. It doesn't make much financial sense, obviously, but at least because what Square did with Dragon Quest was they usually put that series on the most popular platform at the time. And so what they did with Dragon Quest IX is that they made it a handheld game. They put it on DS, and I think that did pretty well for them. And when it comes to kind of the console market in Japan, that whole thing is super dry, like terrible right now, like way, way worse than anywhere else in the world. And yet they're still putting out Final Fantasy 15 on the PlayStation 4. Now maybe that's a good decision in the sense that it will help Sony sell units over there, but I think that a Final Fantasy game on the 3DS, like a mainline one, would be a really interesting prospect. The problem with Final Fantasy is that at this point the series has kind of this hallmark for production values and for just really good looking graphics and that kind of stuff, which would mean that if they would put it on a handheld they'd have to scale all that stuff back. But I think that would be super cool if that ended up happening. And I know we get spin-offs here and there, but a true mainline Final Fantasy, bring it back to the handheld. I mean, we've already seen Bravely Default is basically that and has done super well on 3DS. So, if they were to do a revision and bring the good old Final Fantasy to Nintendo again, I think that would be a good place for it to be. Other than that, I'm really excited for Persona 5, and that's going to be on PS4, which means that I'm going to have to buy a PS4. I think there's a PS3 version, actually, but I'd probably like to buy the PS4 version. And obviously Uncharted. Basically, if those two games came to Nintendo or PC, then I wouldn't have to bother buying a PS4, because that's really all I want on the PS4,
Wow.
unfortunate as that may be.
And sort of all these titles, games like Witcher 3, I'm sure there'll be other equivalent games like that. You'll always buy the PC version over considering them for PS4 if you did
absolutely
buy a PS4.
Yeah. No, there's no doubt in my mind, because The Witcher 3 on PS4 is garbage compared to my PC version. Like, it runs at 30 frames a second. There are a bunch of technical issues. I don't have the ability to, change all these settings and everything. PC is always going to win out for me over a console. Apart from Nintendo consoles, because hey, those games don't come to PC, so I'm stuck with that. But it's fine because Nintendo actually optimize their games and run them at a humane frame rate. So yeah, pretty much.
So our final question this week, a slightly shorter segment this time, I think, is from friend of the show, Nagi. As Nbz knows, the current Humble Bundle, which is all exclusively for Nintendo hardware, is region-locked to be unlocked by American users of Humble Bundle. How do you two feel about the way it's being sold, and do you guys think there will be one exclusively for the UK and Europe?
All right. Well, this is a hot topic right now. Let me tell you a story.
Nbz, you have the mic.
Let me tell you a story. I was sitting downstairs just after dinner. I was scrolling on my phone on Twitter. I see Chris Kohler tweets, and he says, Nintendo Humble Bundle. And I don't even look anything else up. I lose my fucking mind, run upstairs to my computer, go to humblebundle.com, and I'm literally about to type in, buy this Humble Bundle, when I realize it says, this is region locked for only American regions. And then I deflate like a fucking giant balloon. So yeah, this is a really cool thing that Nintendo are doing. The problem is because they're Nintendo, they have to fuck it up somehow. And in that sense, Nintendo consoles are region locked these days, and I think it's a terrible idea. I think that they are. Iwata has made statements kind of hinting at the fact that for NX they won't be region locking stuff, which I really hope is true.
Really? That's awesome.
But for the time being, 3DS and Wii U are region locked, meaning that we are not able in the UK or in Europe to get access to this Humble Bundle, which is fantastic. It's a bunch of indie games that are on Nintendo consoles, on 3DS and Wii U, and some of them like Oli Oli, you buy the Humble Bundle and you get codes for both consoles, which is fantastic. Unfortunately for us, we don't have access to it, and I was looking up this and I was getting very angry about it because I feel like if they're going to do this, they shouldn't go ahead and make it for one single market, right? The way that Humble Bundle works is that it's really a worldwide thing, and on the PC stuff, none of that stuff is sectioned off. Steam codes are just generic Steam codes; they're not region locked in any way, and I don't know. It was frustrating for me, Bally. I texted you about it.
Yeah, I kind of got the full circle of your excitement and then your rage in like the space of 3 text messages.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a bit of a terrible situation, really. It's great. It's sort of giving with one hand, taking with the other, saying, "Oh, yep, here we go. Here, have this, North America, Europe. You're not going to get anything." I really do hope that we do get a Humble Bundle at some point. I've been absolutely loving many of the indie games that are on the Wii U, and as someone who doesn't have a PC, I just think it's great. Like, I'm playing some awesome games that you've talked about previously on the show, Nbz, and I've got Guacamelee coming up, for example. That is one of the games that would have been in the Humble Bundle. So that, I mean, there's really top-notch quality indie games on that Wii U eShop, and it's a great idea. These Humble Bundles, like, you as a Steam user absolutely love them. And it's a great idea that this is coming to a Nintendo system. So yeah, great idea, Nintendo. But come on, Europeans are real people as well.
We exist.
We only have the Atlantic between us and the United States. So if you give them one thing, you can always give it to us, friendly Europeans.
And I did see a tweet from, I think, it was someone who works at licensing at Nintendo of America, and people were asking him about the fact that it wasn't coming to EU territories, and he did mention, we tried to figure something out, we tried to work it out, but it wasn't happening, and we thought we'd just go ahead and pull the trigger just for the Americans right now, and hopefully in the future we'll sort that out. But they did try to get NOE or whoever it was to agree to this, and I feel like it didn't work out. Another thing I think is they included Moon Chronicles in the bundle, and Moon Chronicles is currently not available in Europe, so that may have another thing to do it, because some games are eShop specific for region, as we know that some stuff comes out in America before it comes out here. Like, we have Zero Mission on the eShop for Europe, but they don't have it in America yet. So yeah, that could also be a problem because of the region-specific nature of Nintendo's eShop distribution service. So I don't know. Yeah. There are factors at play, but ultimately I'm annoyed. Nothing I can do about it. But I guess it's cool because loads of people in America get to try these games, and that's great. So
I think I'm gonna cheer you up with your favorite thing, Nbz.
What's that, Bally?
A bit of time travel.
Oh boy!
You ready to hop back to 2005?
Oh, am I ready? Am I ever?
Well, get your TARDIS, and we are gonna hop on over to 2005 E3. So join us after the break, and we're gonna have a massive chat and discussion about all the Nintendo happenings from 2005.
Alright everyone, welcome back to the third and final part of the show. And this week, as we outlined before, we're going to be talking about E3 2005. It happened 10 years ago, and we thought that in preparation for the 2015 show, we would take a look back and see what Nintendo were doing around that point in their history. We actually did a live kind of commentary over the top of the whole press conference, which you can find over on my YouTube channel. There will be a link to it through our Twitter account, so you can go to @TNL Podcast on Twitter, find the YouTube video there, and listen to us as we kind of just chat over the top of it. And it was a fun time. I enjoyed watching this show. It may not be the best E3 in Nintendo's history, but a lot of interesting stuff happened. So just off the bat here, Bally, what do you think overall of the E3 2005 press conference?
It was really refreshing to see what Nintendo exactly prioritized at that point in time, and it seemed at the time that the big thing was aiming at non-gamers and casual gamers, and it was kind of just as the DS had launched and just before the Wii was announced, obviously. So it was this kind of, we want to appeal to non-gamers because basically we think we can make a lot of money out of them, and I guess in the end they did. And just the whole structure of the conference, it felt like there was a hell of a lot of filler, like so much filler of just talking about stats and markets and people that they were aiming at. And I just feel that the digital event is so much better at being concise and just it's a far meatier experience. I just feel like more games get shown, fewer montages, I'm sure, and it was just a bit. There weren't a whole lot of announcements, considering the whole thing was an hour long.
Yeah, really very sparse, actually, surprisingly so. We were talking like we're 15 minutes in and all they've shown is a DJ and Electroplankton, but we'll get to that.
Oh, God.
We'll get to that. Yeah, totally, I agree. I think that they spent too much time on kind of scripted on-stage stuff that honestly didn't do much and just wasted like 10-minute chunks which weren't really needed to be wasted. And they could have focused more time on stuff they showed in the montage, because stuff they showed in the montages was some pretty cool games that they didn't actually address or talk about in detail. It really did feel like, yeah, they were kind of rearing up for this casual focus, and a lot of those games were aimed to that degree. So let's kick it off, and they opened with a montage of different games. Some of these are GBA games, some are DS games. I don't think there are GameCube titles here. This would seem to be more of a handheld focus montage, Bally.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just the handhelds.
So one of the ones that I picked out from there was Beautiful Joe on DS, which I still don't even know if that actually came out or not. And I'm trying to rack my brains.
I believe it did, but I don't have evidence to back that up.
Yeah, well, whatever the case may be, it's one of those games that I completely forgot was even a thing. And apparently it did come out. It was called Beautiful Joe Double Trouble, and it got an 8.5 from IGN. So
not bad.
Maybe one day we should look for that and try that out. But that's really cool, and it was one of those things that, like, it's a third-party exclusive on a DS that I just clearly came out quite early in the system's lifespan and I wasn't paying attention to, so completely missed on it. But there was some other cool stuff shown in there. Do you remember any others from the montage, Bally, that you want to pick out?
Ooh, I'm struggling. I mean, they even showed some stuff from like Mario Kart, didn't they? As early on as that, it was just kind of
because we'll find out later in this conference that the Wi-Fi connection was announced, and obviously Mario Kart DS launched with Wi-Fi capability, so that wasn't out yet.
So it was like unannounced games. Highlights from those games were shown in these montages, weren't they? So like that's not really something you'd see from Nintendo at the moment, would you?
Well, I'm not really sure if like things like Mario Kart DS had been announced yet.
Yeah, that's
they
what
must
I mean.
Have done.
Like
they must have done,
yeah.
Because they wouldn't have just like thrown that into a montage without people knowing about it. So I do feel like the montage stuff was probably games people knew were coming, but so be it. Anyway, we move on then to Iwata coming out on stage and kind of trying to be Reggie but not being Reggie, and it ending up being super awkward but also really funny, and it kind of it reminds you of a simpler time when Nintendo did those scripted segments that just fell flat on their face, but a lot of people like make memes of them out of that stuff these days. So it was funny, and he tried to talk shit on Reggie and about how he was kicking his ass, but he couldn't say ass because clearly he's the CEO of a global company. So not about to kind of tarnish his lips with such foul words. Is Iwata. But then Reggie comes out on stage and fucking lays the smackdown on Sony. My god. Straight up says the PS2 is like not as good as selling as the GBA is, says that PSP is sold half as well, and then the famous line, not my problem, related to the PSP not being out in Europe in time when the DS was. What did you think of this whole segment with Reggie, Bally?
It's pretty feisty, and it's quite interesting to see that just names like Sony are made known in a Nintendo press conference. That would never happen at the moment. And you see these really awkward interviews with people like Reggie, and they might say like, "Oh, if you say you had a question like, how is Splatoon gonna get into the Call of Duty market?" They just kind of look at you like, what's Call of Duty? I don't even know what you're talking about. And
right, it almost feels like a taboo to even say the word Microsoft or Sony from Reggie these days, which is like a complete heel turn from back then. It's kind of crazy.
So yeah, I just thought it was weird, and I mean ultimately it's a lot of heat and not much light. It's a lot of fighting talk when, if you're a gaming journalist in the crowd, you don't really want to hear fighting talk. You just want to see some games. And I just feel like it's an example of a bit of filler that is just, it's quite nice that it's not there anymore, to be honest.
It's totally a relic of the old E3 where they would spend the first 20 minutes of the show just showing you graphs and telling you their demographics and saying, look how many units we sold. And Reggie going with numbers and saying, we sold 2 billion games in our history. So lots of stats being thrown around. Interesting to some degree, but also wearing on the viewer, and certainly I'm glad that modern day E3 is no longer like that and we just get games, which is really what it's all about. So let's move on to a game, Electroplankton. I'm not sure if it was announced.
It's not even a game.
It's not even a game, says Reggie, an experience. So this, I didn't even know this happened. Clearly, at the time when E3 2005 came out, we were just reading gaming magazines, so I'm not sure people would have made note of the fact that they brought out a DJ to play Electroplankton. But they brought out a DJ to play Electroplankton. He had 2 DS's, and there was a montage with him.
And it went on for like 5 minutes. Like, it wasn't just 2 minutes of, oh, that makes some cool little sounds. It was just a very kind of, almost like elevator music, not elevator music, that's harsh, but it was very like low key kind of music. It was nothing special, I found, and it was just like us staring at this DJ dancing about, and Reggie even chipped in with a bit of his own dancing, and we lost it watching the video, but it just all felt awkward and it wasn't relating to games. I don't know who they were trying to appeal to, but it was just terrible PR.
It was kind of bad, and I'm not sure if this was the first announcement of Electroplankton, but I don't know, they were trying to push it. It seems like Electroplankton was the genesis of the touch generation stuff,
yes,
you know, which later came with Nintendogs and brain training and all that stuff. I think it came out before those, and certainly it was nowhere near as big a hit as those later titles were, but you could see like the direction they were moving with trying to make like this musical app almost, as opposed to a video game. So it's cool. It's one of those curiosities that one day I'd like to see Electroplankton and play it, like maybe on Wii U Virtual Console or whatever.
And I think it should be a reduced price, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I swear it came out for sort of £20 back when it came out.
I think it was quite a cheap release,
so hopefully it'll be reduced on the eShop.
Hopefully. Well, then we move on to a much more high-profile game, which is, of course, Mario Kart DS, and not only talking about everything related to that, but most critical is the Wi-Fi connection. They announced their partnership with GameSpy. Rest in peace, Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. And it's really funny that we're kind of like reminiscing on that and thinking, you know, this podcast wouldn't really exist if the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection hadn't ever come about. Because that was like my start on the internet and how everything kind of led to right now what we're doing, just talking about Nintendo on the internet. Yeah, so it's a big deal. It's a huge deal. Wi-Fi on DS was crazy. What did you think when you first heard this announcement? You were telling me a story about your parents not believing you.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was incredibly excited for Mario Kart DS and the online functionality. And I remember sitting at home. Took ages to connect my DS online, but I eventually did it. And I remember just saying to my parents, like, "Look, I'm playing NBZ, or playing Namen online," and they were like, "What, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, honestly, I'm playing him online," and they're like, I don't believe you." Like, I just they thought I was just playing some computers online. They didn't actually believe I was playing a real person, especially because I was holding something in my hands with the DS. It's such a small system that you normally associate online with something like a desktop or at least a laptop or a computer, not a little handheld thing. This is before iPhones, obviously, so the idea that a small handheld device could connect online just wasn't common at that point in time.
No, it was kind of groundbreaking, honestly. And even like back in 2005, not many people still had, you know, Wi-Fi at all. It was not super common. Fortunately, both of us did, so we were able to use it, and our DSs worked with it. Which was great, and I don't remember what else Reggie mentioned regarding this, but it did seem he was just like pushing for the Wi-Fi connection, that feature of the system. So yeah, Mario Kart DS turned out to be good. History proved it right. So then we move on to perhaps the most awkward, weird segment of the show. Which was the promotion for Nintendogs. So they bring out Tina Wood, who used to work for G4, GTV.com, which G4 used to be a TV network, I believe, that focused around video games and kind of nerd stuff. It's now no longer in existence as far as I recall, and it was really funny. So, quick side tangent, there was a thread on NeoGAF last year when G4 was kind of basically falling apart and basically just not being in existence anymore. A dude had posted on NeoGAF like 7 years ago when someone on G4 had said something regarding Nintendo moving out of the business and Nintendo like not being a console manufacturer anymore, all that stuff. And the dude in the NeoGAF thread posted, "I bet you G4 doesn't exist before Nintendo doesn't exist." And that thread lay dormant for 7 years. And last year, he remembered he'd made that post, went back, and said, "Told you so," like, replied to himself. And people went fucking nuts. This dude for 7 years remembered that he'd made that post, and that G4 was dying, and Nintendo's still going strong. It was amazing. It was like one of those crazy, crazy days, and I thought it was fucking hilarious.
Nintendo fanboys unite.
Yeah, but in any case, Tina Wood comes on to play Nintendogs, and she tries to use the voice controls, and they don't really work very well. It reminds me a lot.
It was horrible on so many levels. Just the second she comes on stage, and she's all these grins and stuff, and then she's just all this scripted excitement, which is absolutely the worst. It's like, I cannot wait to play Nintendogs. All these scripted lines of excitement that just sound horrendous in these press conferences, and like, that is the number one thing I love about the digital events, is that scripting is non-existent. It's you don't have these awkward conversations between people learning their lines, and she's probably a bit nervous about getting on stage and whatever, and it's just like, you just don't need her to say, "I'm excited about Nintendogs." Like, she's obviously keen to play it or whatever. It's just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, the digital event is scripted, right? But they have the advantage of an editor who can make it look good and sound good, as opposed to an on live stage thing which you don't really have any control over. So it is it's definitely a step up, I feel. But
and yeah, like you're saying, she did like 3 tricks with her pug, and I think the pug only responded to 1 out of the 3. And I think the audience were kind of like, I'm pretty sure that pug is just doing the same thing it was doing, regardless of what she's telling it to do. Sort of thing.
Right.
Which is
It
very
did
funny.
remind me of the 2010 maybe E3 or 11, maybe it was 11 before Skyward Sword came out, where they had the snafu on the stage where Miyamoto tried to swing the sword and everything and it wasn't working. It's those kind of technical issues that happen on stage at E3 which make you realize, yeah, it's kind of good that that doesn't happen anymore, because now they can just do whatever they want on the video and have it work perfectly and not have just technical fuck-ups. Which are funny, sure, but they don't shine a great light on something like Nintendogs, which is supposed to be based quite a lot around those voice controls. So the fact they were screwing up was terrible. And so to round that segment out, basically she gets Miyamoto on stage, and they have the most awkward conversation. The camera, I don't know who was the cameraman, but he wasn't panning across to what was being shown on the screen, so they're reacting to something. I have no idea what the hell was going
I think
on.
I have an idea what it might be. I think it might be the dog pooping and then someone picking up the poop.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
I would guess.
Interesting. Well, anyway, I had no idea what was going on, and then Miyamoto basically makes a sexual advance on her and is like, I'll teach you some new tricks backstage, and it was weird, it was awkward, it was, like, so un-Nintendo.
And then they put their arms around each other as they walk off stage, and
Right,
it's like, what are you doing?
It was crazy. It was fucking crazy. It was, I don't know, man, that really just, I was flummoxed by that point. I didn't know what to do. But, hey, they talked about Nintendogs, I guess, and Nintendogs turned out to be alright. We liked it pretty much.
Oh, I thought it was a great game.
Yeah, it was cool. So then we get the reveal of new Nintendo hardware. Crazy it is, the fact that the DS comes out and then they reveal another Game Boy. But they do, which is the Game Boy Micro. This is the genesis of the faceplates, which now everyone talks about regarding the new Nintendo 3DS. But the Micro had them first. The Micro was all about the faceplates. And when Reggie pulled it out of his pocket, I was like, fuck, man, that thing is absolutely minuscule. Like, I remember it being tiny, but I was also, like, younger and smaller back then, so I don't think it made such an impact. Looking at it from my perspective now, the Micro is like, how could you play with that at all?
Yeah, I just feel like a lot of the games I'm playing that are GBA related at the moment, sort of the Advance Wars, Fire Emblem, that have a lot of text, a lot of numbers. I just feel like something like those kind of games wouldn't perhaps work as well, or at least my eyes would get quite sore. I don't know. Maybe
it's not even just your eyes,
prejudging.
it's the fact your hands are going to be cramping.
Oh, yeah,
tiny
yeah.
little D-pad and stuff.
So, I mean, it's a cool idea, but I mean, I like the bigger screen, and I love the idea that we can now play Game Boy Advance games on the Wii U gamepad. I think that's just so cool, like having a nice big pad to play a Game Boy game on.
Yeah, I'd still love to own a Micro one day. I just think it's such a curious piece of technology that Nintendo put out, and I don't know how rare they are, but you could probably find one somewhere online for not too high a price. Yeah, I've just always been interested in it, but that thing was crazy. It was kind of like the fallback in case DS
Yeah,
didn't do too well.
absolutely. I mean, I was just saying this on the video, but imagine if the DS had flopped and you would have seen like a high res Game Boy surely after the Micro. That would have been like a really interesting way to go. I mean, you can obviously make the PSP comparison, but just envisaging what sort of the Game Boy HD or something would look like.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to make a comparison between the PSP and the next evolution of Game Boy and see how those would have compared, because I think they would have been way, way similar than the DS and the PSP were. Especially given the design of the GBA. The GBA is basically a PSP but smaller. It's pretty much the same in terms of dimensions and stuff. But yeah, the Micro, crazy. Then we have a bit of a revolution, Bally, as they roll out the logo, which is the 90s thing I've ever seen, with like discs for the O's and CDs and shit. Also, it should be noted, this is the first Nintendo console which used CDs, like full proper disc size,
Yeah.
which is probably why they use that in the logo, funnily enough.
And then Iwata sort of waddles onto the stage with his hands behind his back, looking really awkward. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
he's
hiding
holding it
something.
behind his back.
Yeah, and then he says something like, "There's our new console, etc." And then he just reveals this little black box, which could be anything, and everyone goes nuts. And you're like, "Wow, why are people going so nuts about a black box?" But it was cool.
It's a cool moment. It's just like we don't really get any info on it. And again, this is like a 10-minute segment, I feel.
Yeah,
where...
it's weird. We know so little about it, and it took 10 to 15 minutes of just filler about appealing to a wider audience. And Iwata even said a line along the lines of, "Oh, if you know about the industry, I'm sure you can already tell where we're going." And it's like, no, we can't. We have no idea what this is meant to be. We get that you want to appeal to a wider audience, but we have no idea how you're going to do that or what the controller is meant to look like.
Right, because the controller wasn't shown until the next year, or even, I think, TGS or whatever it was later that year. So people had no fucking clue what this console was actually going to be. People thought that it was going to be the same as what the Xbox 360 was specs-wise. Of course, they didn't touch on that because it's basically two GameCubes duct taped together. But yeah, and he also mentioned it was going to be smaller in the final model. I don't think it was. I'm pretty sure the Wii was that size that he showed on stage.
The model he showed off looked identical to the final release.
Which is kind of weird, because when they showed DS for the first time, that completely changed design-wise for the retail launch. But yeah, the Wii pretty much stayed the same. In terms of games for it, we didn't get anything, but there was a tiny tease for Metroid Prime 3, a little bit of footage of Samus, and then a 3 just popped up on the screen. But that was about it. So technically, the first game ever announced for the Wii was Metroid Prime 3. Though it wasn't explicitly stated, it was shown in the background. So, interesting thing to think about there, and how eventually that became a pretty big tentpole title for the system. But he went off stage after that. We got, I think during that time we also got a bit of a third-party board where you basically are looking at it and you're like, oh, THQ are gone. Oh, Konami are basically fucked up. Who are these other publishers? I have no idea who they are. Like, it's kind of a ghost wall of publishers.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, yeah, I don't think there were any sort of what you would call today super big AAA names there, really, were there?
I mean, you had your Activisions, your Ubisofts, but...
Oh, did you? Of course. Okay. Yeah.
But nothing else, really. And then we get another montage. It's a GameCube roundup montage. Games including Battalion Wars, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, which was, I guess, a very late GameCube game.
Then a load of Mario doing lots of different sports and dancing.
Really, there were 4 Mario sports titles announced, which was like, oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. They're really putting a heavy focus on those, and really the GameCube era was when that stuff shone through the most. They really had a heavy focus on the Mario sports titles, after which when we came to Wii there wasn't that many, because they had Wii Sports and that whole brand of stuff to kind of replace it in a sense. But yeah, it's been a long while since they went that far deep with the Mario titles, I have to say. And there was also Geist. Geist was shown in the GameCube montage roundup, which is another weird kind of GameCube game that was quite late. Very curious one. And after that, they basically said, hey, we know that you've been waiting for this the whole show, because last year we showed you the trailer that made people cry. Of course, the new Legend of Zelda game that was going to come out. Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, the second showing for it, the second trailer. This is where they gave it the subtitle of Twilight Princess. And Bally, you were telling me that this is probably your most watched trailer of all time.
Yeah, I'm definitely, because I mean at the time, video and watching videos online was still kind of new, but I managed to download this trailer from GameSpot, and I dragged the file onto what we had at the time, Nbz, our Arcos, which is a really unique company that basically made media players that were about the size of a Wii U gamepad, actually, maybe a little bit smaller. But you could like watch films on them that you would have to download or manually record. And yeah, I downloaded that trailer onto there, and I watched it time after time, like day after day. That music from the trailer is just ingrained in my mind. And yeah, it's a really great trailer.
It really is. It introduces the wolf link for the first time. No one knew about that, I think, and the artwork was shown beforehand. It's great, and I was just like, it took me back to those days of, the early internet, because I do kind of remember seeing that quite a lot. And also it was around the time when Revenge of the Sith was coming out in cinemas in 2005. That was one of the first videos I downloaded from the internet, was the trailer for Revenge of the Sith. So a lot of that stuff kind of like bubbled up at the same time, and it was very exciting. I was all in for it. But a very, very young-looking Eiji Aonuma comes out on stage after the trailer and announces that everyone in the audience at the E3 press conference was going to get a DS cartridge that had the trailer on it. And this is one of those kind of rare Nintendo items that I actually really would love to own. Like, I'm not a collector. I'm not big on the amiibos, you guys know. I'm not big on going out there and just collecting all the stuff. But that DS cartridge with the Twilight Princess trailer on it is a Nintendo piece of memorabilia that I would absolutely love to have. And it's probably quite hard to get. So
I wonder how they
know.
handed them out. Do you think they were under the seats the whole time, and they basically said before the cameras were rolling, "Oh yeah, there's something under your seats. We'd ask that you please not touch it until the end of the show." Do you think they probably said something like that?
I don't think they would have even said that to people, because people would have fucking touched it anyway. Like, you know how this shit goes. They're journalists.
Yeah.
They want to get in on stories before anything breaks from Nintendo. So I don't know how they would have done it. Maybe as they were leaving the conference room, who knows? But that was distributed, and yeah, it was crazy. I think that would be a really cool piece of memorabilia to own. One day, maybe, Bally. One day I'll come across one.
One day.
We'll see. But that pretty much closed the conference out. It was a very kind of up and down press conference in general. A lot of hits, lots of misses. I think the highlight probably the Twilight Princess trailer, and that's always going to happen when Zelda's around. But cool to see the early Revolution stuff, the micro, kind of the least hype around a hardware announcement ever. Kind of just Reggie pulls it out and is like, hey, there's this thing, and then they don't really talk about it anymore. Yeah, lots of weird stuff happened.
I agree that a lot of weird stuff happened, but I really wouldn't rate that press conference at all, really. I actually think that last year's E3, and there may be just I'm not overly nostalgic about the older E3s, but I think last year's E3 is the strongest they've ever had. And especially when you compare it to one like 2005, I just feel like there were so few real tangible things to get excited about from 2005, and the most excited things, I agree, definitely for me would have been Zelda, but that's almost something that was expected. It wasn't like necessarily a surprise, if you know what I mean. I mean, obviously the content of that trailer was a surprise, but I think the fact it was there wasn't. And I think that if I was a hardcore Nintendo fan at the time, like half an hour into the show, all I've seen is Electroplankton and Nintendo's. I would have been raging. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're going to compare last year's E3 to any E3, you should probably compare it to 2010, which was a very strong showing. And I think if you watch that one, you'd probably think again about maybe, some of these press conferences were very good. I think 2005 is definitely a weak link in that chain. But there are good ones out there. And maybe one day we'll watch some of those and talk about those. But for now, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for that segment. Before we go, we have quite a few things to plug. We're in E3 season, if you hadn't noticed, ladies and gentlemen. E3, it is coming. Choo choo. Let's all get on it. So E3 is in a very soon. It's a couple of weeks away, and next show we are going to be hopefully doing some emails regarding E3. So if you have those and you would like to send us your predictions or just any thoughts regarding E3, send those as soon as possible, because we're actually going to be recording our next show early, and we're going to be doing predictions on it. So where can people send those emails to, Bally?
Please send all your emails to ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. Like you said, Nbz, it'd be great if we can get some E3 related content to talk about what you guys hope to see, want to see, think you'll see, and any questions relating to E3.
Yep, and as I said before, be sure to send your own predictions our way, and we can read some of those out. We will, of course, be doing our predictions next show. We haven't quite figured out the format yet, but be sure to listen there. And we, as I said before, will be posting that early. So looking at the calendar, Bally, E3 begins technically on the Sunday, the 14th. Nintendo will hold their World Championship 2015, whatever, on that Sunday. So that's when the events start kicking off. We're going to put the show out on the Friday before that, the 12th. So a whole 3 or 4 days earlier than we would usually put it out on iTunes, and almost a week earlier than we do on the YouTube version. The reason for that is because we want to get out early. Hope that a lot of you guys will be able to listen to our predictions before the show starts. So we are going to do that, and you'll get an earlier episode next time. So less than 2 weeks to wait for the next show. Which is great, and yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's an exciting time, Bally.
Oh, very exciting! I think we're going to be like uncontrollable children the next episode, so look out for that.
Yes, absolutely. We should also give a quick mention to our new feature, the Backlog Club, which we announced last time, and we're going to be playing The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. I think we're going to be shooting to talk about that after E3. We've not laid it down in stone yet when we're going to do that. I haven't started playing it. Bally hasn't started playing it yet. But do let us know how you're getting on with Minish Cap. If you started it yet, if you're going to be playing along, you can send all that feedback to our email and also to our Twitter, which Bally will tell you right now.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter. It's at TNL Podcast. That's TNL Podcast. Tweet us everything about the Minish Cap. We'd love to get all those read out on the show when we do that segment after E3.
Yeah. Other than that, we can be found on the internet in various places. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Lordnbz, and Lordnbz is my name on the Miiverse as well. And what about you, Bally?
I'm at Ballyman91, BALLYMAN91. I'm hovering Nbz, around 200 followers. Can you believe it? I'm almost over the line.
Very, very big deal here. So get Bally over 200 followers is the point here. We want to pass that threshold. So be sure to go follow Bally if you haven't yet, and get him to that big 200. And yeah, you can find the show as always. We're on iTunes. I've decided regarding SoundCloud that I'm not going to use it anymore because it's a piece of garbage if you have a free account, and not many people, like literally 0 people, were using the SoundCloud feed. So unfortunately, I'm going to stop using SoundCloud for the moment. It may come back in the future, but
iTunes is the best.
Yeah, you can get on iTunes easily. Stitcher as well. Stitcher Radio is a great app, and it also is something that happens automatically when I put it up on iTunes as well, so it's like I need to do anything about it. So listen to us on Stitcher, on iTunes. The YouTube playlist, as always, is available on my YouTube channel, and that is pretty much it. Is there anything else we need to mention here, Bally, at the end?
I don't know, I just think we're going to have to control ourselves before E3, because I can already feel it surging through my body.
Feel it in my bones. I feel
feeling it.
I'm really feeling it.
Ooh, I'm really feeling it.
So thank you all very much for listening. We will be right back at you sooner than in 2 weeks' time for our E3 prediction show. It's going to be a fun one. Hope you guys are looking forward to it, and be sure to join in. Until then, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye. interludes used in today's show were an 8-bit version of the main theme from Splatoon, and a piano cover of War Makes Men Mad from Valiant Hearts.
Well, get your TARDIS and we are going to hop on over to 2005 E3. So join us after the break and we're going to have a massive chat and discussion about all the Nintendo happenings from 2005.
You can get in a TARDIS, I'm taking the DeLorean, mate.
I was theming it for Doctor Who just for you.